Yes, and it's recording. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and guests. This meeting of online presenters has now begun. Guests, please note that in order to be our club member, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 speeches from either the traditional or pathways programs, or you must have a substantial relevance presentation experience that you demonstrate in 3 to 5 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to board approval. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure it shows your name and role if you have one. Right-click and select Rename to do so. We have members and often guests from many countries throughout the world. Thus, as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language and word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we will be recording the meeting. Your video audio contributions may be used for our club marketing purposes. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Also, please avoid using chat during the speaker's presentations. And now the exciting part. The theme of the meeting today is Getting It Done. Please welcome our presiding officer of the evening, VP Krishan Ramchurn.
Thank you, Toastmaster Andriy, and thank you for being so diplomatic, so polite, and so fantastic in your introduction and setting the scene for this fantastic meeting at Online Presenters. Ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed guests, thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us for the next hour or so, because Online Presenters is where we specialize in skills for better webinars and online events. And for today, we have quite a show packed for you. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next person. He's an evaluator extraordinaire. He's fantastic with puns. He's an outlier in his ideas that even I have difficulty fathoming, but I'm always entertained. Please put your hands together or wave crazily for our Toastmaster of the day, Jim Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer, and my fellow Toastmasters, our most welcome guest this evening. I'm Jim Barber, and I'm going to be your Toastmaster de jour. And the theme, as somebody, I think it might have been Christian, it might have been Andriy, I think it was Christian, indicated our theme for tonight is getting it done. I chose that because for anybody that hasn't been paying attention, we are in a new year. You can stop writing 2020 on your checks. You can write 2021 for those people that are still writing checks. An interesting psychological phenomenon always occurs at the beginning of a year. People get fired up to accomplish it. Now, whatever it is, that will vary from one person to another, but at the start of the year, everybody is determined to get it done. At the end of the year, they tend to do a thing more of a mopping up operation, but they have enthusiasm at the start of the year. And so I thought I would take advantage of that and acknowledge that by having the theme being Get It Done. And in the spirit of getting it done, let's get started with our meeting. I have a team of eager professionals ready to help out and make this the most successful Toastmasters meeting that we have ever had here at Online Presenters. And I'm going to start with our timer, who has had all of maybe 5 minutes to prepare for his role. I'm going to ask our timer to briefly describe what his duties, responsibilities, and or opportunities are. Dr. Michael Alexander, also known as Dr. Michael. Doctor.
Boy, Jim, you make one mistake and I have to live with it forever. My job is to help you people stay on time. And I'll do that by being as encouraging as possible, giving you the wonderful background information, letting you know these are all 3 to 5 minute speeches, I believe. that when you've reached your minimum time, I will give myself a green background, which is 3 minutes at, I'm sorry, 5 to 7 minutes. So at 5 minutes, you'll see the green. At 6 minutes, you'll see yellow. And at 7, you'll see the red, which will give you 30 seconds to finish up your speech before the world comes to an end. For table topics, it's 1 to 2 minutes. So again, you'll see at 1 minute, at 1.5, and at 2, whereas the evaluators have 2 to 3 minutes. So it'll be 2, 2.5, and 3. Anyone who goes over that time will incur the incredible wrath of, well, you're just going to have to find out who that is, aren't you? Back to you, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Our next participant is the dreaded Awe Counter, or also known as the Wizard of Oz. Tonight is Brian David Crawford, also known as BDC, DTM. BDC, what will you be doing?
Thank you very much, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Today, I will be counting your Oz to kind of say, how are you doing with your words? Are you pausing too much? Are you using some crutch sounds? Are you misfiring on some words? And are you using crutch words? Those are the 4 categories I'll be looking at to see how well you can string your thoughts together in a cohesive manner. Back to you, Jim Barber.
Thank you, BDC. And our next participant is our grammarian, and this is my opportunity to screw up somebody's name, which is going to happen some point tonight. Our grammarian this evening is Sarah Idahen. Sarah, how did I do?
Great, that's good.
Really? Wow, okay. I'll have to screw up somebody else's. Sarah, would you please tell us what you're going to be doing this evening?
Thank you. I'm going to be the grammarian for this evening, and our word of the day is productive, and it means achieving or producing a significant amount or result. And the example of that is I am productive most in the mornings, or I was very busy all day, but I wasn't particularly productive. I will be looking for how many times we use the word of the day. I'll also be looking for how well we use the English language, trying to find some highlights and some good points on that. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sarah. Our next team participant is our watcher, and the watcher is a role that our guests from other clubs, if they're not online clubs, may not be familiar with. So Jeanette Francois, you're our watcher this evening. Would you please tell everybody what you're going to be doing?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster of the Day. I have a very important job today. I will be watching all of you, although also I'll try to be very productive as to all the reports that I'll be giving you at the end of the meeting. And don't worry, I might be very nice, but I'm watching everything, and I won't be shy to tell you what happened at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jeanette. And Jeanette is on the ball. You may have noticed that she used the word productive in her introduction, and productive is the word of the day. It seems somewhat productive for a theme of getting it done. Our next role is also somewhat unique to online clubs, and it's going to be explained. It is the chat monitor, and it's going to be explained by the one and only Debra Carr. Deb, what are you going to be doing?
Hi, everyone. I am keeping an eye on the chat tonight. I will, message Jim if I need to, but this group is so great about keeping their lips or their fingers off the keys when someone's speaking. I don't think we'll have to slap anyone with a wet noodle or anything, but I can see already that Christian has already, or Michael did, Dr. Michael did, they already filled in about the minutes that they'll be timing with. So if you want to scan that real quick to just have a brush up, then go for it. But that's what I'm doing tonight, is keeping an eye on the watch. They're keeping an eye on the chat. Thank you.
Well done, Deb. You can tell you're a Toastmaster. Thank you. And finally, finally, our last role of the evening is the one that everybody hinges on, because it's responsible not only for determining how we did, but, okay. Looking at the chat there while we're doing, but also they accept MasterCard, Visa, American Express, and so on like that. Of course, I am talking about our vote counter, Tricia Smith. Tricia, what will you be doing this evening?
Hello, everybody. I am going to be keeping track of the votes for the table topics. Actually, we start with the speakers, the table topics, and then the evaluators. And I'm usually available in the chat, and I've checked it a couple of times, so hopefully I'm added there. So all you have to do is look me up in the chat as the vote counter, and I will put the names of the speaker in there in terms of who you'll be, or the speaker, or table topics, master, whoever's doing table topics, or the evaluators in terms of who you need to vote for. So you'll be able to see that in the chat. And I'll give a report when we're done, so we know who won.
Thank you, Tricia. Well done. Thank you. And now I was stumbling a little bit there because it was brought to my attention that our first speaker number 1 might not be in the room. I could have sworn I checked off everybody, but nope, there is not a check mark. Is Rosina Duncanson here? Okay, well, that takes care of that. This is going to be the opportunity to show the importance of flexibility in getting it done. Now we have a possibility. After I got through telling Pamela Benjamin that she was not going to be speaking, she now has the opportunity to do so if she wants to do so with a few minutes preparation. We'll move you to speaker number 3 if you prefer to do that. If you prefer to pass, that is certainly understandable. Pamela?
Can I get 2 minutes to think about it?
Absolutely, sure.
I'll text you.
Okay, what we're going to do then is we're going to proceed with speaker 2 and speaker 3 with the assigned evaluators that they already had. At the end of that time, I will ask Pamela if she wants to be our third speaker. If she wants to, fine, and we'll have the whatever evaluator was assigned to Rosina. If she chooses to pass, that is certainly understandable as well. We can use the time, so it's not a problem. Everybody set? Everybody know who they're evaluating? We're in good shape? All right, then. Let's move forward to speaker. What was speaker number 2 is now speaker number 1. Keep track. Our first speaker this evening, speaker number 2, is Lukas Calafell. His presentation is Strategic Relationships, Level 2, Learning Your Style, Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring. And the title of his presentation is Mentoring and the Politics of Secession. Our next speaker will share a personal story of a time where being mentored helped him to be a better organizational leader and navigate a difficult situation. Please welcome Lukas Calafell.
The American politician John Crosby once said that mentoring is a brain to pick, an ear to listen, and a push in the right direction. I once had a mentor that checked off all of those boxes. That mentor was the advisor of my university's student activity board. What is a student activity board? Essentially, it's a student-run organization that's responsible for providing entertainment for the student body. Now, when I say entertainment, I'm not talking about your basic pizza party or ice cream social. And don't get confused, I have nothing against pizza or ice cream, but I'm talking about large-scale events, comedy shows, concerts, lectures, all kinds of large-scale events with a $300,000 budget to support it. Now, no sane university administration would give $300,000 to a group of college students to use completely unbothered. We had an organizational advisor who worked full-time for the campus life department. So there were certainly checks and balances. In the beginning of my senior year, I was selected to serve as the president of that organization after having served as treasurer just the previous year. being president meant that I had to think about what was the vision for that year going to be, what were my goals, and how was I going to empower the executive board to move the organization forward. I sought advice and mentorship from the organizational advisor. I spent countless hours throughout the entire summer just bouncing off ideas, strategies, goals, all kinds of things to get an idea of how I was going to be successful come the fall semester. My mentor and advisor assisted me in one particular situation and down the line in my term as president. The spring semester arrived, which was the last semester of the academic year, but also the last term of my term as president. And that brought up the question of succession. Who was going to be the next president? It's important to understand that we don't elect the president for the organization. They have to apply for the position, move to the interview round, and then be selected by the outgoing president, me, and the advisor. Everyone knew that there were two individuals in the executive board that had their eye fixed on the president position for the upcoming year. In the spring semester, we also sent a delegation to a national convention for student activities. Now and those two individuals signed up to go to that convention. And I had some concerns. I was afraid that if I had selected those two individuals to attend the convention, it would have become very political amongst them because they would have been trying to one-up each other the entire convention, trying to gain points in favor from myself and the advisor, and thus solidifying themselves as the right candidate to be the president of the organization. On the other hand, I thought, well, what if I select one but not the other? And then the thought came in my mind that, well, maybe I might be accused of favoritism, and I wanted to avoid that even more than the first scenario. So I decided by myself that, you know what, I'm going to select neither of those two individuals that had their eye on the president position. I was going to select other candidates, other applicants that have not attended the convention before. I felt pretty good about this decision because the two people that I was not going to select, they had attended the convention in a prior year. So I wasn't necessarily taking away an opportunity that they had not yet experienced. I talked to my mentor and advisor, and we talked about the pros and cons, seeing what would be the reaction from the executive board. But I left that meeting thinking, you know what, I think I dodged a potentially political or dramatic situation. And then I made the decision, announced it to the executive board and the members, and to put it lightly, an uproar kind of ensued amongst the executive board members. There was drama, and I started to second guess myself. I went back to my advisor at a later day and said, hey, look, I think I need to change my decision. Let's let these two individuals come to kind of quell down the fury. But he told me and he advised me to stick with my decision because the right decision is not necessarily the most popular decision. In the end, I decided to go ahead with that decision and deal with the consequences and the ensuing drama. But in the end, the organization moved past that and we were able to end the year successfully. I don't think that without the mentorship and the advising that I received from that person, I don't think I would have been as strong as a leader as I would end up being, nor would I have developed the skills to be successful in the role that I was in as president of that organization. Mentorship is so valuable because for me, I was pushed in a direction that made me uncomfortable, but it ultimately led to personal growth. So I encourage you, fellow Toastmasters and guests, to find that brain to pick, that ear to listen, and that person that's going to give you that push in the right direction. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lukas. Thank you, appreciate that. Our second speaker this evening, speaker number 3, paying attention, okay, good, is Marianne Grady. speaking from the Effective Coaching Level 3, Increasing Knowledge, Inspire Your Audience. Marianne Grady has been a member here at Online Presenters since April. She is excited to be joining the VTM Con team as the lead for Team Liaison. Tonight, Marianne will talk to us about resilience in her speech titled Bounce. Please help me welcome Marianne Grady.
Resilience is a big buzzword these days. I was lucky enough to have resilience modeled for me as I grew up, though I didn't recognize or call it that. A couple of years ago, when my mom passed away, I had an opportunity to walk down memory lane. As I went through her things, I reached down and opened the bottom drawer of her nightstand, and I found these. These are my brother's shoes, just as they were when he wore them for the last time out to play more than 50 years ago. You see, my brother, he drowned in a neighbor's pool, and he was only 3. Good evening, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and friends. My brother's death was a heartbreaking event in my family's history. But for me, at only 9 years old, how could I fully comprehend the pain my parents endured? This process of settling my mother's estate allowed me to go back and remember the situation with my now adult eyes. I thought about it, and I have children and grandchildren of my own now. And it was crystal clear to me that my mother suffered greatly. I remember seeing my parents cry. I remember looking up at them and thinking, I've never seen this before. And I was afraid. My mom was out of it for a while. She was unable to deal with us at that time. So my grandmother moved in and gave my mother the space to sleep in and take good care of herself. And my mom, she did. She came back to us and normal life resumed. My mom bounced. My mom was a resilient woman. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly when faced with a difficult situation. Now, is resilience inherited? Well, I have no idea, but I do like to think of myself as a resilient person. I've faced more than my fair share of troubles in life, and I've also dealt with a lot of health concerns. Most recently, I've had a kidney transplant. Now, none of these things are as serious as what my mom had gone through, but for me, they were tough. Did you see how that ball bounced? It just hit the floor and came right back up. Are you like the ball? When things go wrong, are you able to bounce back quickly, or do you struggle? In this world today, with so many things going on, I'm finding that loads of people are struggling, and it becomes exceedingly difficult to recover when the problems go on for such an extended period. So tonight, I'd like to share some things that have worked with me as I've learned to develop my resilience muscles. First, and probably the easiest thing, is self-care. It's make sure you eat right, make sure you get your sleep, make sure you're doing some exercise. Hobbies are great here too, because they allow you to relax and enjoy your life. When I was recovering from my surgery, I really couldn't do much, but I just took up crocheting, I read, and I took a lot of naps. Second, step back for a minute. Assess the situation. Decide what's within your control and what is not. But focus on what's within your control, because then you can devise an action plan. And when you're able to take action to improve your situation, it gives you that modicum of control in chaos. Excuse me. Now, I think a lot of us are feeling like things are out of control during this pandemic, and they are. So I made an action plan, and for me, I started walking 5 to 7 miles a day. I started taking some online classes, and I began cooking for the homeless population through a program in my church. My husband and I decided to take road trips to visit the beaches and parks in our new home state. This is just to keep us safe. And then, of course, there's a lot of Toastmaster stuff in there too. Now, my final suggestion for you is to seek support. It could be family, friends, or even a therapist. But you need to talk about these things because it's important to brainstorm for solutions, to talk about what you must accept and how you're going to move forward. When I found out that I had chronic kidney disease, I was overwhelmed. A transplant, really? I had to talk to my family and friends. But when I did, I was blessed because 4 people stepped up to donate, and 2 of them actually matched. My son, the lucky winner, donated a kidney to me, and things are good. I just want you to imagine how much of a weight was lifted off my shoulders by that support I got. So whether it is that you're dealing with the pandemic, loss of a loved one, illness, or something else that is preventing you from bouncing back, I ask you to try these strategies because they almost always work. In closing, I have a quote. It's actually a Japanese proverb that I thought appropriate, and it's Nana Karobi Ya Oki. And what that means is fall down 7 times, stand up 8. Now that's resilience. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Marianne. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. I like that. And now we have an example not only of resilience, but of getting it done. We have a 3rd speaker this evening. Now, I was fixing to get ready to call out for a volunteer because we had gained a speaker, but we lost an evaluator. But I believe that Andriy is going to be good for you, Andriy. Appreciate that. Andriy is going to be evaluating our 3rd speaker. Our 3rd speaker found out that she was going to be our 3rd speaker about 10 minutes ago. So good for you, Pamela. This is a nice way to start the new year. Our 3rd speaker, our backup speaker before, is Pamela Benjamin. Pamela is giving her icebreaker from the presentation mastery path. Have you ever thought of? Have you ever thought of? And this promises to be, excuse me, I just lost my earphone. There we are. This promises to be an exciting and interesting presentation. Looking forward. Thank you for coming up with this on such short notice, Pamela. Take it away. Pamela Benjamin.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, online presenters and guests. My name is Pamela Benjamin, and I have been a Toastmaster for 8 years. Now, that might not seem a long time in this room, but it's never something I had really thought of before. I had my son in speech and debate and trying to get him to be a little bit more outgoing, and my husband said to me, lead by example. Why don't you join Toastmasters? And I thought, what? What I learned when I joined Toastmasters is that I really don't like to speak in front of people. I thought I did, but I didn't. It took me a long time to get comfortable. Along the journey, I did some service with my district. And someone suggested that I do different projects, be an area director and a division director. I was getting deeper and deeper into things that I knew nothing about. But lo and behold, I got this shiny award that said I was the district director of the year, which really meant so much to me because I had never really planned it. I just worked on all the things I could possibly do to make it a great user experience for every club in my district. So when someone says to me, have you ever thought, I tend to listen a little bit more than I used to. Recently, my son was turning 18 years old, and he decided that he was going to go to college outside of the state of Texas. I know. How could that be possible? He was going to be going farther than a car drive away. How could I possibly how could I possibly see him? The only thing that was left for me to do was to get a life. I had homeschooled him. We had moved quite a bit as a family, so that was what the homeschooling experience was about. So for him, going to college was just a different way of seeing things. He did no longer want to be homeschooled through college. He wanted to go and do his own thing. I took up my side project, my side hobby of running, walking, that became running. And a friend of mine said, because my legs were hurting so much from running so much that I was getting shin splints, he said to me, have you ever thought of doing triathlons? You do swim a lot. And it seems that you bike a lot. Have you thought about putting those together? It was like words from heaven. Not only had I never thought of being a Toastmaster, not only had I never thought of doing district service, not only had I never thought of myself as a runner, and I had never thought of myself as a triathlete, but here I am, 5 years later, after all these changes that seem such a small little idea. Have you ever thought that little plant, that little idea grew and grew and grew? Those things now are such a big part of my life. And I look back those 4 years when I didn't want him to go out of the state of Texas, but I had to start reinventing who I was. I had to start thinking differently. And a big part of that thinking differently is my getting outside in the morning. Now see this background right here? That is the Texas state flower. And I know I'm going to say it wrong because there's a Texan in the room, but those are bluebonnets, and they name ice cream after it. Bluebonnet. See, I used to say bonnet blue or something backwards. I was corrected quite a few times, but those are bluebonnets. And the state of Texas, this is not just some random field. Every single field looks like this in the state of Texas for 2 to 3 weeks. And what you see is people stop and take pictures. And so this, to me, this picture means serendipity. Stopping and doing something a little different. And listening to that person who says, have you ever thought? No, I never did think of myself. I never thought of myself doing online clubs. I really never thought of myself being a Toastmaster. I never thought of myself being an athlete. I never thought of myself doing a lot of these different things. But now I'm thinking about it, and I'm especially thinking about who is my timer. I think it's Dr. Michael. And I'm thinking that I'm almost green. But on top of that, all those different things, now I'm stretching myself even farther to say, what's next? I'm working with Tricia, my friend, on the VTM, and I'm also My big, huge project that I rarely talk about is developing a podcast and a website for women to encourage them to be strong and fit as they age into their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and not think that we have to just accept things as they are, but we can be purposeful about our hobbies and our projects as we grow older. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Wow. What's next indeed? I'm looking for, well, that was a great way to start 2021. Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do. Miss Dr. Michael, our timer this evening, could you please let us know if everybody fell within the allocated time?
Yes, but I can do it better if I'm not muted. I have been told that the #1 phrase of 2020 was, "You're still on mute." I am afraid that everyone fell within time except for Marianne Grady, who was at 7:31. So close, but it's over.
Oh. Okay, thank you, Dr. Michael. Would you please send your votes for the better speaker of either Lukas or Pamela to our vote counter this evening, Tricia Smith. And while you are doing that, it is my opportunity to introduce our topics master of the evening. Our topics master this evening is Blizanne Warren-Russell. Blizanne, what things do you have? What wonderful things do you have prepared for us tonight?
Hello, everyone. It is the new year, and everyone normally has a resolution for the year. With the topic for today, productivity is important with your resolution. So I'm going to call on Miss Elaine Niebedink as my first table topic guest. Just a reminder to all table topic speakers, you have 1 to 2 minutes. 1 is where you get the green, 1.5 the yellow, and the red will be at 2 minutes. So my question to you, Ms. Niebedink, is what is the hardest thing you have ever had to schedule for your New Year's resolution to accomplish?
Madam Table Topics Master, honored guests, and everyone here and online presenters. So you've posed, what's been the hardest thing to schedule related to a New Year's resolution? That makes the assumption that I make resolutions. And I'm actually one of those that doesn't make resolutions. I just continue to play and be curious. So, you know, if I said I want to be bold this year, that's not something that has a timeline. That has just a quality of being to it. My proclivity to engage my play and curiosity in most things I do, I try to maintain that. When I notice I'm being challenged with life stressors, you know, the dramas of 2020 and 2021, you know, I want to regain my balance, but timelines, nope, I'm going to kind of throw them out the window. Just keep paying attention to my inner driver's intuition and what's showing up in front of me to be fulfilled every day. Back to you.
Thank you so much. A lot of people don't realize not everyone has a New Year's resolution. And I thank you for bringing that to our attention so that we know. Be careful when you ask that question the next time. Our next table topic guest that I would like to ask to give us a short speech is Miss Viviana Widjaja. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
Okay.
I'd like to invite you as a table topic guest.
Yes.
Hi, how are you? Now, in most countries, 2021 took off with an extraordinary challenges. Give us an idea of what you were thinking about doing in 2021 and if it is attainable considering the current circumstances.
Okay. So in 2021, actually this I have the project to together with the team to celebrate, connect and celebrate in 2021 for my ICF Malaysia local chapter. I know this is the first grand gathering online that involve giving gift and then also we will have a tea time online. So it's interesting to organize together with my team. So the challenges is to ask everyone's address and phone number because we will send the gift to them. So it's not easy to get to contact every members, although we provide the form that every members do not fill in the form yet. So we hope that everything will go smoothly because of the currently the COVID situation in Malaysia is not good. Because some industry may have to close, then we are still waiting whether the gift will be delivered on time or not. So I'm glad that that we, even though there is a pandemic, that we are able to bring the celebration online. Back to you, Alison.
Thank you so much. It is amazing that in 2021 with the COVID that we're still able to have a lot of celebrations. And I thank you for not giving up on celebrating your members and your guests throughout this year. The next person I'd like to ask to come to the camera would be Bridget Stanas. I hope I pronounced her last name.
It's good. I know who you mean.
Thank you so much. And my question to you in this productive society is that if we were to give you a free ticket to anywhere in the world, what would your get it done be thing?
I would, if I could get a ticket to anywhere in the world, I would actually get it back to San Francisco where I am now, but it would be an around the world ticket. Because that way it is one ticket and my starting and ending destination is exactly the same. That being said, I could stop anywhere and I could crisscross the entire world. So I could go from here to, say, the East Coast, and then I could, maybe dive over into the Bahamas and maybe go up to Iceland, make my way over to Europe, go around the whole world. I've always wanted to go to Australia. On the way back, maybe hit Japan and Hong Kong and maybe make it back through Hawaii. So some of these places I have been to before and others I have not. So I still have a long list of places that I have not visited because sometimes I get into that little trap of, oh, I really liked it there. I have to go back. And I don't think that's such a bad thing because that way you really experience it. When I go somewhere, I don't need to see the top 20 sites that every tourist has to see. I actually would like to pick the top 3 or 4, maybe 5, and then just really experience the culture and sit in a cafe and talk to people. And I've had some really interesting conversations with people in Barcelona. I spoke English and German. They spoke Spanish and Catalan. It was interesting. There was a lot of gesturing going on during those conversations. But that would be what I would do. Instead of just picking one destination, I would do an around the world trip and try to experience as much as I possibly can. Madam Table Topics Master.
Bucket list, bucket list. A free ticket can accomplish a whole big bucket list. I turn to Top Table Topics. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a guest on our table topics today. And I turn it over to our Toastmaster, Mr. Jim Barber.
And thank you, Topics Master Elizanne. Appreciate that. Good questions. Thank you very much. Let's see. Let me read my chat messages here. Let's see. Okay, sounds good. All right. Our general evaluator this evening joined us late, which is a darn shame because that meant that he didn't see how smoothly the first part of this meeting ran. I'm telling you, everything was right on target. Lou, trust me on this, it was great. All right. Taking it from this point on, then, I would like to introduce our general evaluator, Lou Brown, who's going to be handling the remainder. Oh, before I do that, let's see. Yes, we have the times posted in the chat. It looks like everybody qualified. Would you please pass your vote for the best table topic speaker to Tricia? And while you are doing that, I will now introduce our general evaluator who's going to be kind to me in his evaluation, Lou Brown. Take it away, Lou.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And I tried to slip in as quietly as I could. I'm guessing most people didn't know until Mr. Toastmaster, you pointed it out that I was tardy. No problem, though. And I apologize for that, folks. I had meetings back to back to back to back, and I still have some more after this. So. Okay, as general evaluator, it is my job to introduce our evaluators for the speakers, as well as call on reports from the various helpers, and also give my own evaluation of the meeting. Starting off right away, and Mr. Toastmaster, if I also screw up, say, with some of these assignments, myself having been a little late, feel free to jump in and let me know. Our first evaluator will be Graham Cairns, evaluating Lukas. Is that correct?
Indeed.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Cairns, please provide us with your evaluation.
Thank you, Lou. By the way, your volume is very low, just letting you know. You may wish to look at that while I am presenting this evaluation. Ladies and gentlemen, members of Toastmasters, most welcome guests, particularly, of course, Lukas. To present the introduction to mentoring speech isn't all that difficult until you've had to do it more than once. It's not like the icebreaker, which you can change around. There's not much you can say about mentoring if you have to say it a second or third or fourth time. Well, I know that this is not Lukas' first go round at this rodeo, but I think he did a marvelous job today by bringing us the mentoring speech from a slightly different perspective. He opened with a really good quote, and a quote which he used to bookend his speech, and I'll get to that in a minute. And I love the humor that he showed. I'm not saying I don't like ice cream, but that's not what we're going to spend this year. So I thought that was really well done. There are some suggestions I would make for Lukas because he is an experienced speaker, as are most of the members of this club. There was an opportunity, Lukas asked me to talk about how well he dealt with stories. And I felt there was an opportunity to bring this story to life by including dialogue, rather than just saying, my mentor said to me, no, you need to stick by your decision. No, I said to him, I really think I'm going to have to change this. No, you've made a decision. You've made the right decision. But what if I'm wrong? You can't double guess yourself. Use dialogue. It brings a story to life. And also, perhaps by introducing some dramatic flourishes. Instead of saying the board were, well, let's just say blew up. No, no, no. Yeah, that might have been World War III had been declared, or it was as if I'd told them that we were going to not only ban ice cream, but ban puppies. That then brings the story to us and makes us part of it. But it was a well-delivered story. I would suggest, Lukas, in level 3, which you're about to get to, you try to tie each presentation specifically to your path. Obviously, the required project that you're going to come to will be related to strategic relationships, which is how this path is. But if you make each elective also relate directly to that, it will be of benefit to you. For example, this was a motivational speech, and a beautiful motivational speech, but you might have included the strategic benefits to be gained by you and by your mentor. That ties it into the path, and it allows you to actually do something different with these speeches, which we repeat as we go through path after path. Having said that, the humor, the story, the confidence you showed were all really strong points, I felt, as was, I mentioned, the bookending of that quote about the value of a mentor. I had tried to write down at the beginning of the speech the quote. I didn't get it all, but by repeating it at the end, I got the message. It will now stick with me. I congratulate you on this speech, and I genuinely look forward to seeing your next presentation. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Graham, and thank you for pointing out the issue with my mic. I also see in the chat that folks had pointed it out as well. And unfortunately, my mic volume was almost at the min, so I could have been actually silent and I wouldn't have known. Thanks again. Okay, and thank you for that evaluation. Wonderful. Moving on to our next evaluator, Angela Heath will be evaluating Marianne Grady's speech. Please welcome Toastmaster Angela Heath.
Hello, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, and especially Marianne. The purpose of your speech tonight was to inspire. And the vulnerability that you displayed, your movement, your grace. I am so sorry. I didn't know I was muted. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, and especially Marianne. The purpose of your speech was to inspire. And certainly your opening, it shook me a little bit being a mother when you showed your brother's shoes. It was very impactful. The fact that you were standing and felt comfortable enough to move around your stage was impressive. I love the fact that the stories you provided us to inspire us with were very real. The audience was attached to them, and you delivered them very masterfully. A couple of things I would work on, I might suggest. I did hear a rattling. I believe it was coming from your microphone. It might have been the mic hitting up against your clothes or something like that, but you may want to work on that. I also thought that when you use the ball to bounce, that you might have used it better at a different part of that speech. When you said, I bounce back, but when you said that, you did this. And that would have been perfect to use the ball at that point. The other gesture that I would suggest you work on is when you talked about that you were knocking on wood and we couldn't see the wood. We knew you were knocking on something, but we couldn't see it. So whatever props you're using, you want to make sure they're visible to the audience. But generally speaking, that was a very challenging speech, I think, to deliver because it was very personal. And your 3 suggestions at the end sort of brought it all back around and taught us what you've learned so we could also take those lessons and apply them when we need to move forward and be resilient. Thank you so much for being so personal and vulnerable. And have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Toastmaster Angela Heath. Wonderful evaluation. Our final evaluator, evaluating Toastmaster Pamela Benjamin's speech. Both of these folks kicking in at the last minute. We appreciate you for that. Is Toastmaster Andriy Smolenko. Please take it away, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator. Fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guest, and most importantly, Pamela. Have you ever thought of preparing your speech just in few minutes and giving it at the Advanced Toastmasters Club? I believe no. What an icebreaker. What an empowering icebreaker for clearly experienced Toastmaster who could just wing it. In your speech, I really enjoyed a clear structure. I really enjoyed the way you told the story. You compare your experience with Toastmasters in a way with other challenges and choices you had to make in life, letting your son go, or just listening to someone else and becoming an athlete, or just standing in the middle of the beautiful flowers fields and giving it some time. Audience participation as well, and hand gestures. And in your presentation mastery pathway programs, I think you more than achieved your goal. It was engaging, it was presentable, and interesting. At the same time, there are 3 takeaways I would like to share with you. Even though you volunteered and you jumped in front and prepared your speech and delivered it skillfully within a short period of time, I would say setting up what you're going to say and then saying it, and in the end, in conclusion, just making more stress on your message would help to make audience more engaged. For example, you could say, I'm going to tell you, have you ever thought of changing your lives? I've changed my life many times. Then you tell your story, and then in the end, with a bit more powerful conclusion. That would be a message for you. Overall, still quite strong. And I've noticed when you were looking for the timer, it happens with all of us. Now I'm looking for the timer as well. And then you found it, and then something a bit clicked, and you kept on going. However, remembering how to end the speech always help. Say it again in the end. Then number 2, perhaps pointing a little bit less. In a few moments, I've noticed about pointing at the audience. Perhaps some of them may not like it. And number 3, ending with a bit more power, because your style, your pathways is presentation mastery. So those 3 little takeaways, perhaps for the next time. Overall, for the icebreaker, for the bravery, and really, have you ever thought of quite powerful message? I salute you. Look forward to seeing your new speech.
Thank you, Toastmaster Smolenko. That concludes the evaluation portion in terms of the 3 evaluators themselves. Mr. Timer, did all of our evaluators qualify?
Yes, all of our evaluators qualified. And Angela, I would have to say, effectively qualified twice. She had not been muted, but I tried restarting from where she had caught up. And whether I restarted or not, she still was in time.
Thank you. And yes, Toastmaster Heath, good thing you weren't cussing when you thought you were on mute, because you weren't. We could hear you. So. Okay, thank you, Mr. Timer. And yeah, if you haven't posted those times in the chat, we'd appreciate that. Okay, now moving on to reports. Hopefully I got the assignments for this correct as well. Let's start with our grammarian, Toastmaster Sarah Idahan. You are grammarian. Yes, please give us your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Well, we had a productive meeting tonight, even though we didn't use the word productive very much. In fact, I only heard it once, but I didn't get a chance to write down the name of the person who spoke about productive other than the Toastmaster. So what I focused on, since we didn't have productive in, I looked at what people were saying and how they were saying it in the metaphors and the alliterations and whatever else they were using. In Lukas's speech, he said, bouncing off ideas to make you think about, I speaks on the position. And when you talk about a mentor, when telling you to find a mentor, brain to pick, ear to listen, person to give you that push. In Marianne's speech on resilience, of course, she used the word bounce, which again is a metaphor, but she also said walk down memory lane. And she said, my mom bounced. And then she also talked about her resilience muscles. Give a great idea about what resilience was like. And she said, brainstorm for solutions. When we looked at Pamela, she talking in her speech, she said, like words from heaven. And she used serendipity. And then she also mentioned stretching myself. And in Elaine's, I liked when she used the word proclivity, which lets us know that's a tendency to choose or to do something regularly. And Graham talked about bookend his speech or tie into your path. And then Andriy ended with beautiful flower fields, alliteration there with the flower in the fields. So we had a very productive night on words, even though we didn't use productivity. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Idahan. And by the way, Mr. Timer, reports are all about a minute max, I believe. Are you keeping track on report timing?
No, I had not been.
Okay, please do so, sir. Simply at the 1 minute mark, give us the red.
Okay, very good.
Thanks, sir. Moving on to our watcher, Toastmaster Jeanette Francois. Please give us your report, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. We had a wonderful evening tonight, and I'm particularly, I promised that I would be very productive as to the way I would give you the report at this moment. Well, I'm gonna try to be very productive. I like the backgrounds. You had very interesting backgrounds, especially the fields of blue bonnets. In Montreal, we have a place called Blue Bonnets, but it's a horse track for horses. So I think it was very interesting to hear Blue Bonnets tonight. And I like the background of BDC because he's laid back, very quiet in his corner. And I think it's a great scenery for me to see. And I think all of you and everybody had very interesting backgrounds. I can see the sky with the clouds, with Andrew Byrne and everybody else. So thank you very much. Yeah, there was a little rattling, but it's nothing so bad. But everything did very well. Please don't type when you're when somebody's talking. Thank you. Back to you, Mrs. General Evaluator, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Francois. We are going to move to our counter, Toastmaster BDC. Please give us your report, sir.
Thank you very much, Lou. I look at the counter's report in a couple categories. But let's start things off by the people who need to be applauded because they didn't use any Oz at all. We're going to start off with the presiding officer, Christian, 0 Oz. Sarah Idahan, as a grammarian, you talked twice and you managed both times not to use any Oz. That was very impressive. But the person who blew my mind the most was Lukas Calafell, 0 Oz throughout your entire speech. That was amazing. Everyone else did a pretty good job with some Oz here and there throughout the thing. I do want to point out the people who use long pauses. And these are instances where people don't know what they're going to say. They don't make any noise. And I think that can be just as distracting regardless if it was planned or not. And that was Jim Barber used a long pause. Debra Carr used a long pause. Marianne Grady unfortunately used a long pause. We understand why. Elizane, Warren-Russ used a long pause, and Graham also used a long pause. I recognize generally those aren't considered to be Oz, but I think we should try to eliminate those as well. That's all I got. Back to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, our last role is the vote counter, but before we get to the vote counter, I'm going to give my GE report. I kind of like to keep the announcement of winners to the very end. Based on when I came into the meeting, everything was running very smoothly, and I certainly trust that Jim did an amazing job right from the get-go. Everything you kept right on time. Everything that I observed flowed very well from one segment to the next. Excellent job, everyone, in that regard. Bit of advice. Actually, let me get to the next item. Very productive meeting. I just thought, again, that everything flowed very smooth and everyone was very quick to give their reports and jump right into speeches, evals, etc. In other words, I didn't notice any technical issues. However, with that said, I had a technical issue. Probably a good idea for all of us to check our audio and video settings when we enter any Zoom meeting, not just this one. In my particular case, when you check your audio settings and you look at the microphone, if the scale is all the way at the bottom, no one's going to hear you. You got to pump that all the way to the top. Maybe I'm the only one who did know this. I don't know, but still a good idea to check this stuff. Okay, in terms of a couple of things I'd like us to do a little differently, or otherwise these are my suggestions.
Excuse me, Mr.
In terms of
G.
evaluation, yes, sir.
We need to hear from the chat monitor.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, let me finish my eval and then we'll get to chat monitor in case there may be some additional chat activity while I'm speaking. Okay, in terms of evals, one thing I've observed in many evaluations, not just what we've heard tonight, is when we give an evaluation, it is our suggestions, our impression. What I mean by that is I observed, or I didn't see, or I saw, as opposed to we, because it's unclear if other folks actually even have felt the same way or saw the same thing that we did, that you did when you give your evaluation. I know all reports are kept to 1 minute, but quite frankly, Sarah gave such an amazing grammarian report, and I think it was important for all of us to hear grammarian evaluations. And since we're talking about that, that could take a little longer, maybe something for Christian. I suggest we go 2 minutes with the grammarian report, keep everything else to 1 minute. That's about it for my evaluation of the meeting. Let's go to our chat monitor, Toastmaster Debra Carr, to give us a report there.
Well, the chat tonight was quite quiet. However, Andy Byrne at 7:38 wrote in to everyone, it was to everyone, to check out, and it's a hint for the organizers of the BTM on January 22nd, 2000, this year. District 105 has scored Daniel Rex, the CEO of Toastmasters International, to speak. He said this would be great to have him as a draw. So that was a great suggestion. Everything else was quiet. There wasn't any picking and rarely any humor in there tonight, but it was just a great meeting. Back to you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Carr, appreciate it. Okay, we do have one other item coming up, but I'm going to officially wrap up the GE roll and ask our vote counter to give us the winners of each segment of tonight's meeting. And our vote counter is, my apologies. Oh, Tricia, Toastmaster Smith, very good.
Hello, everybody. All right, drum roll, right? What a wonderful meeting. Great speakers, great table topics, and presenters and evaluators. I don't know if I have to speak for a minute, but it's really hard to keep you waiting, right? Everybody wants to know who won. So on that note, before I put it in the chat, the best speaker goes to, kudos, Pamela, Miss Pamela. And the best table topic presenter goes to Birgit. Good job. And the best evaluator, Mr. Graham. Kudos, everybody.
Thank you very much, Tricia. I appreciate that. That formally concludes the general evaluator segment. Unless, Mr. Toastmaster, I may have left anything out to your recollection. Sounds like we're good to go. Excellent. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left in our meeting. We do have a new member who joined us just this week, Mr. Calvin Dorsey. Mr. Dorsey, I see that I don't see you. Hopefully we can hear you. Are you able to unmute yourself and just verify that you are with us, sir? Bueller? 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 Okay, maybe Mr. Dorsey stepped away. With that said, I am going to reserve the right to present the new member induction at the time I normally do it, which is at the beginning of the meeting. It's possible that Mr. Dorsey had to step away. That, I guess I can turn it back over to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator or Vice President of Membership, as the case may be. And I am simply going to return control back to our presiding officer de jour, which I think was I think that was Christian. That's right. Is Christian still here?
Yes,
All
I'm
right.
here,
then.
and you thought right, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you,
please-
everybody. Before I go away, this was a great meeting. I appreciate everybody coming through for me. Thank you very much. Christian, take it away.
Thank you, Jim. And please, before you go away, can we just unmute ourselves and express our feelings, our emotions, or just clap for our Toastmaster of the day, Jim Barber, for his fantastic job. Thank you, Jim. Amazing. There's a lot to learn from you here. Thank you so much. All right, you just saw what a well time managed meeting looks like, because we started on time, and thank Lord for that. We are finishing on time, and I'm hoping to not take much of your time here. Now, a few things, a few announcements. We have our next speech marathon, or this next speakathon, coming up on Saturday, 30th of January at 11:30 Eastern Time. Saturday, 30th of January, 11:30 Eastern Time. So if you want to take a speaking slot, or even better, an evaluation slot, go and look for the agenda of the 30th of January. Another announcement that we have is a workshop coming on the Saturday of February, the last Saturday of February. Why? Because the workshop expert is available only then. I don't know if you remember a gentleman by the name of Fuzzy Gotuaka. If you attended the VTMCon in 2020, look at the faces, some of you are like, yes, I was like that, all ecstatic, all teeth and nothing else, because Fuzzy is going to be delivering a workshop for online presenters on Saturday, 27th of February at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. By the way, Fuzzy was one of the participants who reached the top 10 of the finalists at the International Convention Speech Competition in 2020. And yes, you heard it. You heard about it at the start. I'm going to repeat it. VTMCon 2021 is happening. We're just confirming the dates. Yes, some of the team leaders may be asking why. There's going to be an email coming your way, but my request for anyone or everyone who is interested, please wait until we close the meeting. You can ask your questions, especially our guests, what VTMCon is about. And we're also looking for team players. That means we have teams available. You're more than welcome to ask about the teams, reach out to the team leaders, and join the fun. That's all I had to share. We have 2 minutes left, I believe, in the agenda. So I'm going to take those 2 minutes to engage some of our guests. And I will start here with who I see in my participants window. I'd like to just invite Andrew Chadbourne, if you're still there, Andrew, to just come forward and share how you found the meeting.
Well, Toastmasters, I was very impressed throughout the whole meeting. I'm impressed by your organization and by the camaraderie that you have. And I would like to come back. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the nice and kind feedback, Andrew. By the way, I know there was a question at the start of before the meeting started. What do we need to do to be a member? I believe our VPM Lou Brown can correct me here. You need to attend at least 2 meetings and then submit your request to Toastmaster Lou, and also be eligible to have completed either a CC6 or first or second level of a POF. Anyway, just hit us by email. We'll get you there. And Lou, can you just post your email in the chat?
Yes. And Mr. Armstrong, if I can also make one request, I believe there are some guests here who did not officially RSVP through our website. I do not have your email, so please provide me with your email in the chat box so that I can continue communications with you all. Thank you. Back to you.
Good point, Lou. Thank you so much. So guests, please identify GE-Lou Brown in the chat and send your email to him. Thank you for doing that. I'd like to invite Surya Vangala. I hope I'm not distorting your name here, to provide your feedback, how you found the meeting.
It's a memorable meeting again. I enjoyed. It was fun to listen to all the 3 speeches, and I had lots of fun. It's a good group, and Lou and I have been exchanging emails about trying to become a member. So hopefully soon I'll be a member of this Esteem Club.
All right. Thank you so much, madam. And I've been signaled by someone responsible that we are out of time by 1 minute. So I'm going to officially close this meeting before we get feedback from our remaining guests. So thank you for being here, everyone. I wish you not a safe trip home, but a safe time, wherever you are, and looking forward to having you here next week.